Welcome to 12th Man Rising Seahawks podcast with Kevin Dagget and Lee Vowell. I am Lee. Kevin, how are you?
Super.
So the Seahawks lost to the Raiders, of course, 47-5. They got that. No, I'm just kidding. And the Seahawks totally dominated a horrible Raiders team. Awful. Awful because of injuries. Awful because John Gruden doesn't seem to know how to coach the team. This year, maybe he's still getting used to the personnel that he has, which is not bad personnel, but the offensive line was just, they so decimated by injury, just horrible. The Seahawks, who have not really had a strong pass rush, at least from their defensive line, other than Jaron Reed and Frank Clark, and Clark had just a beast of a game on Sunday. I mean, I felt bad for the one Raiders offensive tackle that he literally pushed with one arm and then sacked the quarterback, causing Derek Carr to fumble. But just what are your immediate takeaways from the Seahawks beating the Raiders 27-3 this past Sunday?
I tell you what, they seem to just have it all together, and I've posted something on a Facebook page. Said I'm cautiously optimistic now. I mean, I was pretty pessimistic, beginning of the season and kind of the first few games, but I'm cautiously optimistic. They had a well-rounded game. I mean, like you said, Frank Clark's just a beast. They finally got a pass rush. The offensive line, I'm not hearing Jermaine Ifedi penalty calls and getting smoked by the defensive linemen. The running game's just solid, and I'm curious. I'm curious what was going on at the beginning of the year. Was Pete calling the offense, or is Pete calling the offense now? I mean, or it's very strange what's going on with that running game now, but they just seem to have it all together.
So just to let everybody know, when we do this show, we don't really send out notes because we want it to be like free flowing. But that was literally my next note that I had, which is what happened in weeks 1 and 2 versus the rest of the season. It's funny because look, I love Pete Carroll. I mean, he's been extremely successful. He's won a Super Bowl. He's gotten back to another one. The Seahawks would not have been as good if they'd been coached by almost any other person who walked the earth during the time he's been in Seattle. But in that week 2, we heard that he got in Schottenheimer's ear in that third quarter when against the Bears, when they threw 6 passes on 2 series and didn't run the ball, and Seattle wasn't running the ball at all at that time. And he got in Brian Schottenheimer's ear that he wanted to take a shot, quote unquote, that you can't see on podcast. And it seemed like Schottenheimer tried to take 6 because he thought that's what Carroll wanted. I'm wondering if Carroll just kind of screwed up Brian Schottenheimer those first 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Because it's weird, because since then they have gotten back to focusing on running the ball. And of course, DJ Fluker's come back, and even though he's never been a Pro Bowl player, he's playing like a Pro Bowl player this year. He's made a huge difference, but just the play calling alone, even if Fluker hadn't been in there, going from 16 runs in the Bears game to what they're doing the last 4 weeks, and they could have beat the Rams just by running the ball, and they did it well. Just doesn't make any sense.
No, it is. It's really weird, and I was serious, but that question is like, who is somebody different calling the plays, or it's very strange. I tell you what, the defensive backfield, those young guys are stepping up and hitting people and, causing disruptions. And I love Ken Norton Jr. as a defensive coordinator. I mean, it's not your generic line them up, single coverage man-to-man defense anymore. So, but they put it together, and granted the Raiders aren't that good, but, still they're an NFL team, and they were playing out of the country, so it was a little off for both teams, but boy, they sure showed up.
Yeah, Gruden made the smart move of showing up a day later on Saturday than the Seahawks did. I'm not sure why you would do that to your players when I guess technically you're playing at, was it 6 p.m. to them, but then you have the jet lag. I mean, John Clayton took 48 hours to get there because he didn't want the jet lag. It just seemed kind of stupid. But
it's a long flight too. I mean, it's huge.
It's even longer when you lose 27-3 coming back, I can imagine. And they just got beat down. They shouldn't have scored at all. I mean, the Seahawks scored in the first drive. I think that was the first time since the Kennedy administration that they'd actually scored on the first. Yeah. And for those keeping track at home, the Dodgers are about to take a 2-1 lead over the Brewers. But no, I mean, it just seemed weird that, to show up late or to fly in late, and then the team just wasn't prepared. And I like your point about Ken Norton Jr. because, nothing against Chris Richard. I mean, they produced good numbers with top 10 defenses when he was there. But Norton seems to have the young guys, at least, back to where they kind of were in 2012 and 2013, where they would just, if you caught the ball over the middle or run it down the sidelines, they're going to hammer you. I mean, I don't want anybody to ever get injured, but Amari Cooper got a concussion. Who was in the Rams game? That guy got concussed.
There was two guys, wasn't there? Cup and
two. Cup and the other guy, guy they got from the Patriots. Yeah. But I mean, they're hitting you. I mean, at least if you catch the ball, you're getting hammered. So you're going to get hammered. And Trey Flowers and Tedrick Thompson have both done it, and Bradley McDougald. I mean, that guy's playing out of his mind. I mean, what a smart move that was, not even re-signing him this year, but getting him, before, and he's replaced Chancellor and honestly hadn't missed a beat because he does a few things differently than Chancellor. He's not the enforcer, quote unquote, again, but he does things a little bit more, he's more versatile than Chancellor. And Earl Thomas, who? I mean, because, no offense to Thomas. And, I don't have this in the notes because I'm an idiot. But how bad is it now to me when I look back on Earl Thomas had to know Paul Allen was sick and everybody had to know how close he was to passing away. And to, flip the Seahawks sideline off is one thing. I mean, that's stupid. You shouldn't do that. I mean, the team's playing you. You're under contract, and they're paying you good money. I'm sorry if you don't get you don't have an extension that you want to have, but there's a chance you could if you just, show some class. But then flipping the Seahawks sideline off as he leaves the field after an injury, and then with the owner who was sick already with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma who passed away, dying. I mean, now you look back on it, it's just like, no offense to Thomas, but kind of a jerk.
Yeah, there's a lot of things in life that are a hell of a lot bigger than sports, and that's one of them. And he saved the Seahawks when that whole thing was going down with Barry and moving them, and it was a very unsettling situation. I remember it well when that all went down, and it was like, wait a minute, what's happening to our football team? And packing it up in the middle of the night. I tell you a crazy little story. It's funny because I had an adult paper route and like it delivered papers at say like 3 a.m, and the Seahawks main office in Kirkland was one of my customers. And I remember delivering papers one morning, and there's moving vans in front of that. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And the next thing I hear on the news, they're packing up and moving.
Oh my gosh. Then you realized you lived in Cleveland, and yeah, exactly. Gosh,
but I tell you what, thing about the what was I going to say? The there's not if you watch over the years, defensive people have not. They're I don't think the tackling is near what it used to be 20 years ago. They're just they're arm tackling. They're trying to go for the ball before they tackle people. But the Seahawks defenses have all over the last 10, 12 years have always been tackle first. It's wrap them up and tackle. It's just great tackling. And I think that's the key point to some of these defensive guys is they don't tackle. They arm tackle. They in their defense, it's a little difficult to tackle sometimes these days with some of the rules. But tackling is just not what it used to be.
No, this is a little bit off subject, but you brought it up with tackling, and you kind of alluded to the fact that you can't hit a quarterback without getting a penalty. And this didn't involve the Seahawks, but it was 2 weeks ago, and the Jaguars were playing the Chiefs. They were way down. The Jaguars were not going to catch up, but the Jaguars, Bortles ended up having a 31-yard touchdown run. A couple of plays before that, basically he's scrambling, trying to get out of bounds to stop the clock. as he's running out of bounds, I don't know if you've seen this, but he basically gets hit pushed in the back, and they call roughing the or unintentional roughness or whatever it is. And it was like he gets pushed out of bounds. This is getting silly. And you can't touch a quarterback. It's ridiculous. So then when he makes that, I don't know if you've seen the touchdown run, but he runs for 31 yards. He gets down to about the 7. He's running down the sidelines, and he's not even really running sprinting. He's just kind of jogging almost. And the defensive players come up to him. They try to tackle him, but they're not hitting him hard because you can tell, hey, if I hit this guy hard, we're getting a penalty on this. So basically they're doing arm tackles that he just kind of pushes off and scores a touchdown. And that's the way the NFL is nowadays. And it's I mean, how many times have they reviewed when they had not Cooper, when I think it was, again, the guy from the Patriots, when he got hit against the Seahawks, they had to review the play. Even though it was clear the guy hit, he got hit with his shoulder pads. And I think it was Tedrick Thompson. He hit him with his shoulder pad. And they still reviewed it. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, I understand safety at this point, but when you can see it with your eyes on the field that the guy hit you with his shoulder pads, you shouldn't have to spend 3 minutes reviewing it to see if we're going to, have a 15-yard penalty and, possibly kick this guy out of the game for making a tackle that they're taught the way they're supposed to tackle nowadays. And even if they do it right, they're going to get a penalty. It's just ridiculous.
It is.
But, yeah, I mean, and the Seahawks, they still hit hard. They've missed a bunch of tackles even lately. Justin Coleman, who's been he needs to be re-signed. He's been great as the slot cover guy for the Seahawks, but he's missed a few tackles, and Trey Flowers has missed some. Tedrick Thompson has missed some, but overall, I mean, when they hit you, and they still could have beaten the Rams. I think they learned a lot about themselves during the Rams game because I don't know what the Seahawks. I'm not saying the players didn't expect to win that game. NFL players expect to win I would assume most teams would expect to win every game. I don't know how much the fans thought they were going to win the game. I didn't think. None of us thought that they had a chance. I don't think.
No.
And they really could have won that game. And I think it was a loss, but I've never seen a loss, or at least not in a very, very long time, where a loss was one of those things where it's like, you know what, we're pretty good. We could actually make the playoffs this season, which sounds ridiculous because the team lost so much talent, but I think we've both alluded to it, in previous shows. The talent they lost shouldn't have been on the team anymore. The players who are there now, a lot of them are young and talented, and whether they're as talented as the players they lost, I'm not sure. But they sure want to show up and play, where the other players, I don't think, did after a while. Yeah,
I agree. It's the guys that left were, and it's, I blame some of this on Pete Carroll because he, quote unquote, allows people to be themselves. But some of these guys are pretty vocal in the locker room and in front of the media, and kind of ran their mouth a little too much. But and I think without them there's we're not hearing the stories that we heard the last couple of years with the Seahawks. There's not a bunch of jibber jabber going on about off the field stuff with them, so it's kind of nice.
So this offensive line actually is, last few weeks is pretty much a strength as far as Dwayne Brown, J.R. Sweezy, Justin Britt, or Joey Hunt, who played well in that one game that Britt missed. DJ Fluker and Jermaine Ifedi, who you talked about, we're not seeing the penalties. He's actually playing pretty well. The whole offensive line is playing well. I mean, this unit, I'm not saying it's the best unit in the league, but heck, at this point, it's a lot better off than it has been in 5 or 6 years. This is a strength that the team needs to. It sounds ridiculous saying this, but it's true. It's a strength that the team needs to use moving forward to even get into that playoff hunt, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. It has. They've really stepped it up. And I was talking to a couple buddies of mine, and it's about Ifedi not. Don't hear his name mentioned with penalties and stuff. And my buddy Larson said, I think he thinks Dwayne Brown might have taken him under his wing. And, hopefully.
Or the fact that Tom Cable's not there anymore and he actually has a real line coach in Mike Solari.
That's true. That guy.
But I tell you what, he's done wonders with the Raiders so far this year, too.
Yeah, hasn't he, though? Yeah, he's fantastic. But it is amazing, and it's I don't know if it just took them some time to gel. You got Fant back there coming in, and as an eligible receiver. It seems like every time he comes in, I'm waiting for him to get the ball one of these times.
I know.
Jump up that power forward, jump up and catch one over the middle.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who it was one of the players on the team that actually had that idea. I don't know if it was Nick Vanette, but he was like, yeah, we should put this guy in some point and have him catch a pass because he was a former tight end at Western Kentucky.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. But, yeah, I mean, so Frank Clark's coming up on his season where he's going to get paid. Yeah, Yasiel Puig has just knocked in another run, so it's 3-1. And the Dodgers have managed to run themselves out of this inning by a bad base running play. But anyway, Frank Clark, he needs to be extended. He doesn't need to be able to leave the Seahawks team, I don't think. He has proven this year that game in, game out. It was funny because Mike Salk made a comment about how he didn't play well against the Rams. I'm like, what are you talking about? He beat Andrew Whitworth again for a sack. What do you want the guy to do? He can't have 3 sacks every game, but he really had 4.5 sacks if without the penalties against the Raiders. I mean, he was in the backfield almost every time. He was a beast. 2.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 3 tackles for loss. The problem is with this guy, Earl Thomas isn't going to get paid in Seattle. I don't know what you think about KJ Wright. They've played pretty well without him. He's in a contract year. Maybe they don't re-sign KJ Wright, and some of that money that they would use for Wright, and especially all the money they would use for Thomas, should go a long way towards re-signing Frank Clark because, pass rushers you can draft and hold your fingers, cross your fingers and hope that they do really well. You can't really get him in the free agent market because other teams are going to. Frank Clark is a no-brainer extension at this point, right?
Exactly. You got to sign him, and I mean, you got to look real seriously at some of those offensive linemen too that are the 1-year deals. But yeah, for sure, Clark is a no-brainer because we've struggled with the pass rush. Now we got a pretty good pass rush. I mean, we could use a little bit more help there, but you got to sign him. Yeah, those fast edge rushers, they're hard to find. Like you said, people pick them up.
Yeah, and even when he moves inside, I mean, a guy, he's a freak. He's a physical freak because a guy his size should not have his strength either. And when we saw that, it's just embarrassing what he did to the one guy for the left tackle for the Raiders when he pushes him down and literally jumps him and tackle or sacks Derek Carr. I think he and Jaron Reed have formed one of the best outside-inside combos in the league at this point. Jaron Reed's playing his contract, thankfully, is not up until after 2019. They're going to have to extend him too. I mean, he's playing it's crazy how good he's playing. 4 sacks for interior linemen. He's grown into his own. I mean, I think if the Seahawks can find a way to spend the money, which they should, because that's why you have money. This is my concern, though, as far as spending money. Paul Allen has just passed away. He doesn't have a wife. He doesn't have any children. His sister is basically she doesn't want to run the Trailblazers. They're going to sell the Trailblazers because she doesn't care about NBA. She's a Seahawks fan. Maybe she'll take a rooting interest in the Seahawks. My fear is that we saw what happened with the very old ownership in Seattle. Now, there's no way the team's leaving because the fans wouldn't allow it to leave, and the fans support the team a lot more than even they did when the old owner was there when they had 40,000 people showing up. They sell out every game now, even when the team's not great. But my fear is they need to – whatever they do with the ownership needs to happen before next offseason because they're going to have to make some – in fact, it needs to happen ASAP because extending Clark could happen before the offseason. How concerned are you that the ownership really isn't there for the Seahawks right now?
I mean, it's always a concern when that stuff happens. I think it'll be all right, though. I mean, it's when people have that much money, they usually have some pretty smart people around them to help manage it. And so, hopefully they can get it worked out. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't think the NFL would let them move.
It would be right. Yeah. Plus, I think Seattle's they're in a position where they're gaining. They're gaining an NHL team. They're going to gain an NBA team eventually, pretty soon.
Yeah.
So, how excited are you that Jerry Jones is going to be the new owner in Seattle? No, I'm just joking.
God, that guy on the field every damn game. I tell you what, I don't know how he's let what's his name coach that
Garrett.
team for I let him coach that team for so long.
Yeah, but I feel bad for Garrett
too.
too.
Last 2 years.
I know, but you think about it, it's like your owner. How badly does he have to feel like he's micromanaged?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's such a strange season. We're talking about the Cowboys, and they totally destroyed. Whoever it was they played, a decent team, and what a weird season this is. The Patriots, I never considered them toast or anything like it, but then they bounced back, and they did something the other team should have done, which is the Chiefs' defense is terrible, and they outscored them basically 43-40. But man, I mean, there are some beasts in the NFC that whoever gets to be there for the AFC is going to have trouble. I mean, even if the Saints get there, they look amazing. The Rams look crazy good. I mean, they have so many different ways to beat you, even if the passing game's not working like it was this past Sunday. Todd Gurley runs for over 200 yards, and the defense really has underperformed. I mean, eventually they're probably going to hit like all cylinders, and the Seahawks aren't going to win the division, but they do have a 47.7% chance of making the playoffs, according to ESPN, which I'll take at this point. They're a half game back out of the wild card, 6 games into the season, and that's not a bad thing to do, especially when you start the season off 0-2 and they're 3-1 in their last 4. They have a tough schedule coming up, but anything can happen. They can go to Detroit and beat Detroit after a week's rest. They get KJ Wright back. They'll get Ed Dixon back. Tyrone Swoops, of all people, had that big gain over the middle. It's just such a strange season. I think the way the offensive line is playing, if they play that well or close to it every week, and they've played really well the last 4 weeks, they're in a game with everybody, right?
Oh, yeah, I think so, especially when you get KJ Wright back and get Dixon back. I mean, because, those are big injuries. And re-signing KJ Wright, I think he's earned his money. If he can stay healthy is a thing. Some of these guys are getting injured now, but I think they got a shot. Like I said, I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic. We'll see. They've played well the last couple of weeks. They should have beat the Rams. I really wish that would have happened, but that timeout call at the end was not. Of course, I'm sitting on my couch, but
but you're sitting on your couch and you're not making millions of dollars to make that decision, and you on your couch would have not made that decision. So
that's right.
Fair enough to say. So no game this Sunday. Obviously, it's a bye week, which is nice for both teams. I liked how the NFL actually did that, scheduling the Raiders and Seahawks. Not that we give a crap about the Raiders, but it was nice to see both teams get a bye week after the spending that week in London, because I know that teams have played in London and then come back and played the next week, and that's kind of rough. So at least if you have to play overseas, at least you're coming back to a bye week.
Yeah, that's huge. That's a huge advantage there.
Yeah. So 3-3, week 6. Obviously, no weeks off after week 7. We've got the Lions, and it's tough. It's a tough schedule. I mean, the Packers, Chargers, get the Rams again. The 49ers haven't fallen off the face of the earth. I mean, they haven't won, but they also haven't played poorly. But as far as the Packers, they give up a ton of yards on their against good rushing teams. That's what the Seahawks are. I don't have any hopes really that Seahawks are going to go down to Los Angeles and beat the Rams, but they could. I mean, they were in that game, and they could go on the road and beat Detroit. I think if we're talking about and when we do the show after the Lions game in a couple of weeks, that show could go either way. We could see, if that's a win after they beat Detroit. Or a loss. The loss isn't in the season, obviously, by any stretch, but a win on the road against Detroit, who's one of the playoff contention teams as well. I mean, we're pretty giddy if we're on that show, aren't we?
Yeah, and I think that's a possible win. Green Bay is a possibility, but also Green Bay has that guy named Aaron Rodgers, and he seems to like to win. He seems to hate to lose.
He does, but I mean, his defense is. I mean, yeah, he does, and it's tough to go on into Green Bay and win. But the Seahawks may be at this time, maybe 9 wins gets you into the playoffs in the NFC, because there's a lot of decent teams. There's some great teams, and then there's some bad teams. But I think overall there's a lot of teams that are pretty equal. You get an injury here or there, or just some weird play happens in a game that allows you to win. The Seahawks are right in the hunt. And of course, it's 4 weeks from now we could be talking about, the Seahawks are stuck at 3 wins, and we're talking about next year. But they could also win their next 3, and it's just like Pete Carroll for as much as people give him a hard time, and we do too, in some ways. Overall, he's a great football coach. He knows how to win. He's a proven winner. He's going to get these young players to buy in. They already have. And the team's going to be in a position, they're going to be better. People who were saying they're going to be 4-12, 6-10, that was always BS. I mean, come on. The team with Russell Wilson as a quarterback, Pete Carroll as a head coach, and the talent they still have overall was not going to be 6-10. I think people just wanted to hate on the Seahawks a little bit. Now watch, they'll go 6-10 because of whatever, but because I just jinxed it. I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl or anything, but yeah, I mean this team is, I think it's going to be a team. They're getting healthier. They're going to be a team that's going to be. They could conceivably get better as the season goes on. I've got hopes for this. It's, 6 weeks in, 3-3. I've got good hopes. They could be 4-2 easily at this point.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Or they
anyway,
it could be. Yeah, it could be 4-2 very easily.
I won't ask you for your prediction for Sunday because there's no game. But we'll do this next week and prep for the Lions game. But as always, Kevin has the last 2 words.
Go Hawks!